slides. Yeah, great. So I'm really excited about sales enablement technology because sales enablement technology has the power to transform seller experience and also customer experience. So today I just want to take you on a journey, the journey that we've been on at Halcyon Knights in establishing a sales enablement function and seeing the impact that that's had on our business. And that's really being powered and driven by a technology transformation for our sellers. So first of all, I just wanted to do a poll. So if you want to use your Slido, what percentage of time do you think sellers actually spend selling? So Forbes did a study on this at the time that I started the sales enablement function at Halcyon Knights. Well, it looks like you're all pretty aware of the very big problem that we face, that salespeople are only on average spending 36% of their time selling. So that's only 36% of their time with prospects and customers. So where is this 64% of their time going? Maybe some of you can relate to this picture. So salespeople are having to spend time making their own content, searching for content that's lost in their emails. They're spending administrative tasks because their CRM doesn't work to automate their basic tasks. And then they have to spend time using spreadsheets because, again, the CRM doesn't work. And this study showed that the number one frustration for salespeople is an ineffective CRM and technology. So when I was tasked with setting up sales enablement for Halcyon Knights, this is one of the first things I wanted to do. But firstly, just to set some context, who is Halcyon Knights? So we're an APAC talent partner and we work with many of the technology vendors throughout Australia and Asia. And we have a range of talent services that we offer them. Now, this is who we are today, but a couple of years ago, our business looked a little bit different. So a couple of years ago, before we had sales enablement. To set some context, recruiters are sellers. Every recruiter in our business is responsible for their own business development and account management. They have to grow their clients, manage those relationships, as well as sourcing candidates. So I started Halcyon Knights as a recruiter, and I'd been a recruiter for a while. I managed a team for a while, and then I was in the role of sales enablement. We had 35 sellers, 3 locations across APAC, and we're competing in Australia alone against 7,000 recruitment consultancies. So our customer experience was pretty important. But none of those recruitment consultancies had a sales enablement function. So we're the first one. What did we empower our salespeople with? What tools did we give them? Everyone's familiar that sales in the past would be given a phone, an inbox, and expected that if you just made enough calls and emails, eventually something would stick. Some of you have also been given a half-broken CRM that's really just a system of record. You record your deals, that's it. Or some people in our office were doing a lot of stuff on pen and paper. But one tool that we did use really well was LinkedIn. So all of our team, we all have LinkedIn Recruiter and they all use that very effectively in sales and recruitment. But we had a big problem. If you're not using your CRM effectively, how do you collaborate? How do you share information? We have people working across multiple accounts, multiple people working on the same accounts. And so where does all this information sit? We have an amazing marketing manager and she's produced a whole lot of content and she'd email that out to people and it would sit in their inboxes and it would get lost and they wouldn't know where to find it. Some people would create their own content and sometimes that was a disaster. And then a lot of people had a lot of information in their heads. We have some great sellers who just retain a lot of information up here. They're also using spreadsheets, using their phone. But none of this helped us to collaborate to be effective. So when I started in sales enablement, I came across this diagram which outlined the 9 success factors of sales enablement. And it's put together by SBI. And this is something I followed in establishing sales enablement. So after I'd established a charter, the next step was to do a technology roadmap. And we took this one step further, and we wanted technology to empower all of these 9 steps of sales enablement. So technology to underpin not only a CRM, to empower playbooks, content, training, coaching, gamification, and then ultimately be able to measure the results of all of that. So first of all, we had a look at our current tech stack. So that involved meeting with different business leaders, meeting with sellers, understanding their frustrations with the CRM. I'd been a recruiter, I was pretty familiar with what some of those frustrations were. But we also needed more than a CRM. We needed a full tech stack. So we decided to replace our current CRM, and one tool that we're going to keep is LinkedIn. So we phased this out over a 2-year period. The next part was to empower our sellers with market data insights. So in recruitment, it's really important to be a trusted advisor, to be a thought leader to your clients. So we needed to give people the insights that they needed instead of spending hours researching this kind of information. We also had no way of getting consistent, regular feedback from our customers. And again, we didn't have much going on in the way of collaboration other than verbal. Next stage was to roll out content, a content platform and a learning experience platform. Now you're probably looking at this thinking that's a lot of technology. How are all these sellers going to log into that? But all of this integrates together into one seamless experience for the seller. So when you're going out to set up sales enablement technology, one of the most important things is to be really clear about what you want to achieve. What is your goal? Do you want to be more predictable? Do you want to increase your seller experience, your customer experience? Do you want to get greater analytics, high value for money? Once you've established a goal, then it's a case of finding out what do we actually need. And so again, this was a process of going through, collaborating, meeting with different business leaders and sellers and understanding what a tech stack in a perfect world would look like for them. What are their greatest challenges? At the same time as reviewing a tech stack, we also reviewed our content and our training. So we did a review of the current sales collateral content that our sellers had, met with the sellers and leaders and worked out what they needed and developed a new plan. The same happened with training. We looked at all the training we had. We had some fantastic induction material, but people were craving more. They wanted some development. And so again, it was a case of mapping out what training we had and what we needed to develop to sit inside this new technology stack that we were going to drive. How do you know what solution? So yesterday, Anne-Marie talked about the large amount of sales technology that's out there. So how do you find what's out there and what's right for your business? So there's some great software review platforms. So G2, TrustRadius, they all categorize software into different categories. You can see a list of all the vendors that sit under that, see the reviews of them. And this is how we started to develop a short list of the solutions we wanted to have a look at. Does it really meet your needs? We have a demo, but this process was really an iterative process. We would have a demo of a solution, would go back with questions, they would come back with another demo. And we typically did this for each solution about 5 to 7 times before we got to a place where we were really sure that every part of this solution was going to work for us. Until we do a trial and get some references from current customers. So one solution we had right at the final stage, if this solution passed the trial, we were going to go with this one. And I did some references. And there was a couple of roadblocks that these customers were having. And then when we did the trial, we also experienced some of the same roadblocks. Now, a lot of vendors will push back and say, we don't normally do a trial. We don't want to give you a solution without giving you training. But normally we got around that by setting up a session with them. They would run us through the demo site, and then we'd run a whole lot of use cases that our sellers would use and run them through the system and test them out. This is a pretty big investment, so it's something that you want to get right. But then how do you demonstrate value? So you found the technology you want. How do you get your leaders on board to see the value in this? Obviously, it's going to cost money. So one of the ways I did this was to understand the solution cost and divide it by our average deal size. Then I could tell our leaders how many extra deals we needed to break even. So sometimes that was only across the whole team, all we need is 3 extra deals in the year and we're broken even. And this solution is going to make people more efficient and effective, so we should have no problems getting to 3 extra deals. The really hard bit. Making the change, changing people's behaviours. So this took a culture change. People had to think differently about technology. They all hated the CRM, so they're all quite happy to have a new one. But they also had to change habits of just using it as an administrative tool after the event to actually living in it every day. So we really had to sell the benefits to them, and we really had to change their thinking and also change our best practice processes. So we had to build some excitement around these tools. So for one of our solutions, we put up posters all around the office. We did a promotional video addressing all the things that they'd asked for in a new learning platform. Salespeople are competitive, so we also drew on their competitive nature and established a competition as to who could get the highest score in this new solution. We set up user champions, so in each team having people who are quite tech savvy, very familiar, learning very quickly, that they can be the go-to person in the team for the new solution. So what did our tech stack look like? We rolled out a new CRM. It's very specific to the recruitment industry, so if you're not in recruitment, you're probably not aware of this brand, but it really changed our business. People were using it from day one. It was easy to use, it automated a lot of their tasks, and they were in it every day. There was a lot of training that went on in that to show them the benefits as well. Phase 2 was obviously about collaboration, giving them the market insights tools and getting feedback. And phase 3, I really want to call out these 2 vendors because they really speak to the heart of sales enablement. If you're not aware of HighSpot and MindTickle, look them up. HighSpot is a fantastic content management platform. So not only did all of the content now sit in one space that was integrated with our CRM and with Outlook, they could easily access it, but also we could send our content to our customers and the seller can see what the customer engaged with. So if you send out a white paper or a capability statement and then your next follow-up call, you can understand what they engaged with and customize that conversation to what the customer is actually interested in. MindTickle as well is a fantastic training platform. So it plays to micro learning, so giving people short bursts of learning that they can then put into practice very soon afterwards, rather than taking them away for a whole day of training. It's also a great coaching tool. So managers can set up different scenarios that their sellers need to work through in presenting or pitching, and then they can rate them and score them and coach them from there. So what did we learn along the way? There's some things I learned that I wish I knew when I was first rolling out sales enablement technology. Many vendors told me when I'd ask about integrating different solutions together, because that was really important, oh, we have an open API, it's fine, we can integrate with anything. That's not true. If they don't have something already integrated, don't bank on it, because sometimes building an integration is harder than it seems. There was one vendor, and they really impressed me with how frequently they did releases, because our last CRM, in the whole time I used it, I never saw a new release. And I was like, wow, this is innovative. This company's going to be great. But you also got to be careful that if releases happen too frequently and too big, make sure that that vendor is going to give you support and training to get your sellers on board with the new changes. Wowing sellers versus fatiguing sellers. So I had an idea that we would roll out all of this technology pretty much all at once. People would be amazed, their life would be easier, and that's certainly not the case. We did have to roll out a staged approach, which worked really well, to make sure that people weren't fatigued. And at one point, we did start to roll things out a little bit too quickly, and people were getting tired. They were getting tired of having to learn a new system and build that into their daily sales life. So spreading that out is really important. So we had a couple of years of sales enablement. We'd set up this technology stack. We had new content. We had new training. What was the impact of all of this? From the first month of the rollout, we saw an increased engagement in the CRM, and that had a direct impact on quota attainment increase. We now could draw out predictable analytics, and we could look at past success and work out where our future success was going to come from. People were collaborating. They didn't have to call out to someone or send an email around to ask for the latest update on an account. They could see it straight away. A lot of administrative tasks were automated, and content could now be measured with the engagement with our consultants and also with our clients and prospects. And we were winning tenders. So in the past, we went for a few tenders, we didn't win many, and things changed obviously, and now there's a good success rate of winning tenders. We also reduced our system cost with greater functionality. We had less time running face-to-face training, and we can now scale across more locations. And this really powered growth for Halcyon Knights. So 2 years before, Halcyon Knights had some pretty big growth targets, and we really wanted to grow. And sales enablement and the technology that we put in really played a key role in that. In 2017, we have one brand. We now have 5. We had 3 offices, and we now have 6. We sold to 2 tech verticals, and we now sell to 25. We were losing tenders, and now we win them. We had 80% growth, 64% growth in employees, because our employees actually wanted to stay because they had a good seller experience. And we grew our customer base by 250%. And we're also acquired by an ASX listed company because they were really impressed with the sophistication of our sales processes. And today, Halcyon Knights is part of a group of companies that's the 4th largest recruitment consultancy in the country. So increased seller experience has a direct impact on driving increased customer experience. What could your business look like if you could have your sellers spending 64% of their time selling and only 36% on non-revenue generating activities? Is it growth, expansion into new markets, opening new offices? Thank you.
Questions for Leah before we break for lunch? Yes, Danielle?
How much did they pay you for that result? Be serious, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So my question was, how much did they pay you for the results in that business?
Well, my manager's actually here today. So
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's so impressive. Like, you are, having come from obviously working with a large CRM, you're like the best client. You're the client that we want, is the people that map this out and figure out the business case and see how you're going to track that ROI. So just hats off to you. I think this is amazing. And I really do hope you got the recognition for this, because that changes businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we've got another question. I'll get to the gentleman in the pink shirt and I'll come back to you in a second, Aaron. Yep.
Thank you. Hi. We're going through a similar process in our organisation, introducing a lot of new tech and rolling it out quite quickly. We've got some new staff. We've got the blend of millennials and X and Ys and Zs and everything else. Yeah. What are your sort of top tips for, avoiding tripping yourself over on the journey, on the change journey?
Tripping yourself as in too much, too quick?
Right. Yeah.
I think it's important to focus on what's the most important thing, what's the biggest win. So for us, the greatest problem was the CRM, and until we fixed that, we couldn't really fix the other stuff. And that was a big win for me, because in establishing sales enablement, not everyone understands what that is. And within 6 months, our sellers could see an impact that sales enablement had made their life easier. So that was an important thing. And then, as I said, it's really about having a staged approach after that, and just really keeping close with the sellers and with the leaders to see how they're tracking with all of that. And making sure that it suits all generations. So having things that are mobile friendly, that are engaging, that are short and snappy, and that's sort of what we went for.
Thank you. Aaron?
Leah, great presentation. Really fantastic to see those sorts of numbers, and obviously the impact of the work that you've done has clearly been felt and appreciated by the business. I guess what I'm interested in, somewhat to Douglas's question as well. Obviously, recruitment's always been perceived as having high turnover in recruitment consultants. obviously you were doing something that is geared around helping them and actually improving their experience. But I guess I'm just interested to understand in terms of how different does the team look at this sort of state or this stage in the journey in terms of what's happened to turnover, but also not just turnover in general, but almost demographically in terms of ages of consultants and whether there's been sort of any shift there.
Yeah, sure. So before Sales Enablement was set up in Halcyon Knights, we did have lower turnover than our competitors. So there already was a big focus on, if you want effective sellers, you need to keep them happy, you need to keep them engaged, compensated for. There was also already some great perks and health and wellbeing benefits. So we did have that, but one of the challenges we did have is we would have to recruit people who are quite experienced. We didn't have the tools in-house to ramp up some of those more junior people. And some of this technology, particularly around training and content, allowed people with lesser experience to ramp up quicker so they could still be effective. Before that, we would have been setting people up to fail. Sorry, there was two parts to your question. What was the other part?
So the demographics of the team.
Demographics, right. So, I mean, Jane was talking about the 4 different generations across her team. We're probably more, well, we are more Gen Z, Gen Y, with a little bit of Gen X. So Gen Z is obviously quite new, so that's meant further adapting things. But they've really engaged with a lot of this. Like MindTickle, it's all about really short, snappy training. Learn something in 10 minutes, start putting it into practice, learn the next bit. It's about regular feedback, instant feedback, and that's a big thing for Gen Z as well. Thank you.
Before we break for lunch, yes, Kelly?
Thanks, Lee. That was great. What was the mix of stakeholders on your evaluation? Like when you were doing the trial, you kept saying we.
Yep.
So, and were there some voices that you didn't expect to have some good input from in those types of people?
Yep. So I said we because one of the key people I worked with was our learning and development manager. So both her and I had been successful recruiters in the business and then moved into roles where we were enabling other people to be successful recruiters. So she was a main person. She was obviously very familiar with induction, ramping people up, recruiting people, all of those things. But then on top of that, we engaged all of our sales leaders. Marketing played a role in this as well. Finance, IT, HR, wherever it was relevant, we would engage all of these people across the business and talk to how that was going to affect them and what their needs were for that.
So did you have any sellers on that committee or group evaluating it?
Yep.
Other than yourself?
Yes. Yeah, so we did talk to sellers as well. So we had different sessions with teams and their manager would be there. And we'd just talk through some of the frustrations that they had, the opportunities that they saw.
Great. Thank you so much, Leah, for the presentation and the questions. We're now going to